Note: this game was sent to me by the developer before release. I didn't let this influence my views on the game, just wanted to note it. Bird Game is a recently released surrealist RPG created by Black Jacket, and available for free on Steam. It is also a great game that I'd highly recommend, especially since it's free. Definitely didn't already say that. The Steam description of the game specifies the plot as, after a large-scale invasion of purple-eyed crows, you are tasked with seeking out the renowned wrestling fish, who decades ago defeated the leader of the same strange beasts. This is about accurate. You play as a single bird, eventually gaining several more party members, the most of them are basically blank slates, who need to defeat the crows, and accomplish this by going on an adventure through Bird World or wherever this takes place. The plot is generally somewhat loose alongside the world building, though this definitely works in the game's favor, as a more complex story would probably take away some of the game's charm. Almost every character in the game speaks in a very strange, stilted highbrow style, almost similar to the Hylix games, which this is pretty clearly inspired by, though not randomly generated this time. It is often somewhat difficult to tell what characters are saying, though thankfully this is mostly confined to flavor text and not to the actual directions. The writing of the game is generally absurd and very entertaining, definitely helped by the aforementioned style. The game's vocabulary is also quite great, making extensive use of the amazing adjective corvidical, referring to crows. Overall, the game's writing and plot very much adds to the game's vibe, even if it's nothing terribly deep. The gameplay is fairly standard for an RPG. Turn-based battles, EXP, all the standard fare. Although similar to games like Earthbound, there aren't any random encounters here, and all enemies are visible in the overworld, which is much appreciated as someone who hates random encounters. One interesting difference between this and most RPGs is that instead of most characters having a basic attack and skills, in this game they usually have several different basic attacks, or heals or other various moves they can use, with none of them being visible or hidden behind a skill menu, and none of them being the designated main attack. It isn't a huge change, but it helps to set this game apart from some other RPGs. Otherwise, the combat is fairly easy, though this doesn't take away from the game much, and it's never mind-numbing. There are definitely some challenging encounters though, so thankfully the game isn't a complete cakewalk. Outside of combat, most of the game is puzzle and exploration based, somewhat obviously. One of the only issues I have with the game is the confusing direction it gives sometimes. I believe some of this has been fixed in the full version, but at several points in the game I had absolutely no idea what to do without basically brute forcing everywhere in the game, which is pretty frustrating. Apart from that, the exploration is consistently enjoyable and the areas are creative, and same for the puzzles. Unlike most RPGs, there are a fair amount of gameplay shakeups throughout the game which help to add variety, such as a fully functional game of checkers you have to win, and a 3D dungeon crawler type area, both of which were very cool, though the latter was very confusing. Overall, the gameplay is consistently entertaining and enjoyable, even if there are some directional difficulties occasionally. The game's art is very cool. I have no idea how the art for the environments was made, but it very much resembles Hylix's claymation locales, which I always enjoy the use of in games. Contrasting heavily with the semi-realistic environments, the sprites for characters are all very rudimentary pixel art. They should look pretty terrible, but within the already very weird and somewhat off-putting vibe of the game, it works very well. The game is also almost entirely monochromatic apart from some backgrounds and eye colors, which is definitely an interesting choice, and adds considerably to the previously mentioned vibe of the game. Overall, the art style of the game is pretty great and definitely adds to it. The majority of the soundtrack in the game is classical piano music, which fits shockingly well even in battles. The pieces selected are all great, and it also adds considerably to the aforementioned vibe. That's about it with the soundtrack, it is just good. Overall, this game is a very well done and fun RPG that I would highly recommend. As it is free on Steam, there's basically no excuse not to play it, besides all the very valid ones, so feel free to try it out. It is definitely a corvidical good time.